Ask Reddit, what's the fastest you've seen a crowd go from excited to horrified? During a Buffalo Sabres game, Clint Malarchuk took an ice skate to the neck, severing his carotid artery and partially cutting his jugular vein. He almost bled out on the ice. The sight was so horrifying 2 fans had heart attacks and 11 others fainted. Numerous fans vomited at the sight of all the blood. Malarchuk thought he was going to die on the ice, so his only thought was getting off the ice so his mom didn't have to watch him die on TV. He asked for a priest and had the equipment manager call his mom to tell her he loved her. The only reason he didn't die is the Sabres athletic trainer was a combat medic in Vietnam. My parents were at the game and said that most of the fans assumed the worst and that seeing the ice turn red was one of the more horrifying things they'd seen in person. I was at a Bo Burnham show he was recording for hit Netflix special, but unfortunately this part didn't make the cut. He was cracking jokes as usual, then asked everyone in the audience to crack their knuckles on the count of 3. It was the most horrifying evil sound any of us had ever heard. Duck, that gave me a good belly laugh. Wish it had made the final cut. I was at a Russell Peters stand-up show in a large theater. He starts some banter with the guy in the first row who had a huge tattoo on his arm saying Skylar, or similar name. He asks all about Skylar. It's the guy's daughter. He starts making jokes about daughters, some sexual innuendos, etc., and then asks how old Skylar is. The guy in the audience goes, "She passed away." It was pure crickets after that. Bud Dwyer's press conference that turned into a filmed suicide. We had a local TV anchor in Florida named Christine Chubbuck say, in keeping with Channel 40's policy of bringing you the latest in blood and guts and in living color, you are going to see another first, an attempted suicide, and shoot herself in the head. Circa 1974. The footage never got out, so it's not well known. I was at a 4th of July fireworks show featuring Walton Destin, Florida. The show was being staged from the inlet from the Gulf of Mexico to the bay. People were watching it from the other side of the inlet, the Highway 98 bridge, and from their boats on the water. The first salvo launched, but one of the shells exploded either in the launch tube or just above and ignited the rest of the show on the ground. Some launched a little bit before exploding. What was supposed to be a 30-40 minute show lasted 1-2 minutes. As the first shells blew up, I could see the silhouette of the technicians as they ran, like a stop motion movie. The technicians were cool as hell since none of them were looking back at the explosions. I never realized how big the bursts were until I saw them going off on the ground. Everybody was trying to get away. We were being hit by pieces of fireworks. They weren't just landing on everybody, they were hitting us. My dad started the boat, but realized we couldn't move. A lot of kids were watching the show while they floated in the water. We were yelling at the other boats to stop because of the kids in the water. Fortunately, enough people heard, listened, or realized what the problem now was that they stopped and locked everybody in place. Nobody was seriously hurt or killed, only a few techs were treated for minor burns. On that day, those techs outran Usain Bolt on the beach, wearing safety gear. I, along with an entire beachfront of about 80 plus people, watched a boat back up and chop a lady up into pieces. It was bad. What the duck? It's not terribly infrequent. A woman nearly lost both arms to a boating accident when she jumped off the back while the driver was still reversing. I do not swim near running boats ever for this reason. Woodstock 99. Everyone was super cool and chill, and all of a sudden it felt like the winds shifted. It was palpable, like you could cut the air, it was so heavy. Got a super bad vibe, so we packed up immediately and left. By the time we got to the first gas station, reports of fire and rioting started. I wonder why we get those feelings like that. Like we get feelings where we can tell something is wrong or something bad is gonna happen. Human brains are insanely good pattern recognizers. So good that we can recognize and take cues from things we don't consciously perceive. An American comedian in the Republic of Ireland saying how happy he was to be in the United Kingdom. Similarly, a Canadian band hollering "We love England" at the beginning of their set in Glasgow. Yikes. I was brought to corridor once and the matador got his leg impaled by the bull while he was trying to get over a fence. The crowd started screaming and booing the bull like it was a foul move. I was like, LMAO, the dude ducking stabbed it, what was it supposed to do? Recite poetry? The bull must have been so disappointed to have the crowd turn on him in the middle of his long, slow, agonizing slaughter. Last week at a BLM protest they were letting anyone come up and speak through a megaphone. This man got up and started talking about his newborn son and how he wanted to make sure we have a better world for him. He then started talking about love and unity and the guy essentially had the crowd eating out of the palm of his hand. Then he brought up Bill Cosby and how he was arrested on allegations and the crowd turned instantly. I remember watching a Twitter video Snoop Dogg posted where he defended Bill Cosby's innocence and talked it up as some type of racist conspiracy. I've sorta soured on the guy since then. Didn't help that he also referred to Gayle King as a doghead bee in the same video. Went to see the Pokemon movie with my fellow group home residents as a treat. There were maybe 70 of us there. Most had never been to a movie theater before, so it was a pretty big deal. The house even splurged to get everyone a small soda, candy, and a portion of popcorn. This was literally the best day of most of our lives so far. We get settled in, taking up most of the theater, when the credits started and the lights dimmed. We were so excited. Pokemon. The movie was about to freaking start. Opening ads start. We're silent the whole time in anticipation. Then the credits never ended. We thought, because this one ad seemed to go on forever, some kind of a spoof of an alien movie, maybe a play on Star Trek. Credits rolled. Lights turned on. Nobody spoke. Every single face was deflated and so freaking disappointed. Someone screwed up and played Galaxy Quest instead of the brand new at the time Pokemon movie. Nobody talked the whole way back to the house, but as soon as we got there so many kids lost it. I didn't end up seeing it until like 10 years later, and it blew mind, haha. Several years back and my band opens up for a hardcore punk outfit from Illinois at an all-ages venue where they have a sci-fi theme to their show. The singer dresses up as a mad scientist and the other 3 members dress up as his evil robots. They also have old television sets plugged in around the stage playing 1950s B-horror movies while they play. No one including the people running the venue have ever seen these guys play before, but going off of the theme we are expecting something awesome. That is until I'm backstage putting my equipment away and notice them all pounding back shots of tequila. When it's their turn to play they're so hammered they can't even make it through one verse of a song. The singer ended up drop kicking one of the TVs into the crowd of about 200 people, which caught fire. This caused the sound guy to end their set right there and they were banned from the venue for life. I've never seen a crowd go from happy to oh shit so fast. One of my buddies saw the Stooges in the 1970s. The band started the show playing raw power with no vocals for about 10 straight minutes. Then Iggy finally stumbled out. He made it through about 3 songs before he just fell the duck over. And that was it. The show was done. The entire assembled students from the elementary school where teacher astronaut Krista McAuliffe taught at, who were broadcast live to the world, as they watched the Space Shuttle Challenge explode seconds after takeoff, killing all hands on board, including their teacher. Oh yeah, we had an all-school assembly to watch it, on a tiny TV up on the auditorium stage of course. I was in 3rd grade, we barely understood what was going on. The most unnerving thing was watching our teachers weeping quietly and trying to look strong for us. I was also in 3rd grade but on West Coast, so I woke up to my mom crying in front of the TV. The science teacher took us out to watch it from the playground. We were only 50 miles away and could see it clearly. Then the ducking thing blew up. There was a guy performing risky stunt dives in a river for money. He pulled off great stuff and people were clapping and clearly hyped. One of the tricks went really bad and he crashed headfirst into a rock from a decent height and killed himself. I always remember what Penn Jillette said at the end of his nail gun routine. It was like, we find it morally wrong to put someone in real danger for entertainment. And I have to agree. They think it's immoral to make the audience complicit in danger. Basically you're paying to see a magic show, not a medical emergency, so there shouldn't realistically be that possibility on the docket. Detroit Tigers almost perfect game. We all saw the play and the dude was out. We all start celebrating. Then we slowly realize the ump called him safe. Celebration quickly turned to the opposite. Technically not horrified but still the fastest 180 I've seen or been a part of. Detroit sports and officials turning a moment of elation into a moment of sadness in an instant. Name a more iconic duo. I was at a Van Halen concert a few years back and David Lee Roth comes on the mic and says this next one is from our new album, I was at a Rolling Stones concert about 15 years ago. As soon as Mick said that Keith was going to do a song, everybody suddenly had to go to the bathroom. A friend of mine decided it would be fun to try and see if he could smash a beer glass on his head. Up until then he was just being an enthusiastic drunk and had some positive attention. He then decided the beer glass thing was a good idea and promptly executed it. Head wounds bleed a lot in the first minute. Crowd went from AWW, you're cute, to duck, he's gonna die. I sobered up in an instant and got a semi-clean towel for him to stop the bleeding. Thankfully head wounds also stop bleeding pretty quick in most instances. Drunk ideas are almost never good ideas. When working on a kids show, a child goes missing within the first 15 minutes of the show starting. Show had an emergency stop so the parents could plead for the child to make himself known. Nobody was allowed to leave their seats or leave the building. Whole building had to be searched. Everyone assumed the worst, but after half an hour they resumed the show even though the kid still had not been found. 10 minutes later we got word that the kid had wandered out of the building and was found safe and sound around the corner. To make matters worse, the show was Rapunzel. You know, where the story centers around a kidnapped child. At my friend's wedding, the groom kicked the flower boy. He was no more than 10, so yeah, on purpose? Yes, it was terrible. I didn't exactly see it happen though. Just heard a collective gasp from the crowd and the boy on the ground. There was a moment silence and all hell broke loose. Didn't even get to finish me damn plate. Monday Night Football, November 18th, 1985. Washington Redskins vs the New York Giants. I was pretty young at the time, so being allowed to stay up late on a weekday was a rare occasion. During one of the plays, Joe Theismann was sacked by Lawrence Taylor and Harry Carson of the Giants. The entire stadium went silent as Theismann would end up suffering a compound fracture of the tibia and fibula. What I remember most vividly is that the broadcast kept replaying it over and over again and seeing shin snap at a 90-degree angle. It made me physically nauseous and had to walk out of the room. If I recall correctly, following the injury, broadcasting policies were changed so that constant replays like this would not be shown in the future. WWE's Over the Edge 1999. Owen Hart fell 70 feet to his death during the event, and the company inexplicably continued on with the show after he'd been taken to a hospital. Diablo Immortal announcement. I mean, don't you guys own phones? The 4th of May 2010. It's de Den Herdenking in the Netherlands, where we remember all deaths of people that died through or because of war or peaceful operations. It was called to life after World War II. At 8 o'clock, I think, we have a 2-minute silence for remembrance. One person however thought it was fun to scream bomb, or something alike, rendering all the people there terrified and running against the barricades in a hurry to get away. The king and queen got escorted away as soon as this happened. 7-8 years ago during a concert there was an earthquake. Not too huge, but enough for some speakers to fall and to scare the shit out of those attending. At a music festival, Bluesfest, in my city Ottawa, we had a stage collapse in a windstorm a few years back. Edit. It was actually 9 years ago. The band playing at the time was Cheap Trick, and they sued the festival and the stage company. I don't know if this counts, but I'm a huge fan of 90s rock. Korn, Slipknot, Seether, Mushroom Head, etc. Anyways, I've always wanted to see Marilyn Manson in concert, and he was opening for I think one of the mentioned bands above a few years back. Anyways, he comes on and just looked horrible. Kind of slurring, but whatever, I get it. So like 4 songs and he starts singing Beautiful People and mostly everyone seemed into it. Well, maybe because it's TX and it was an outdoor venue over 100 degrees, but he just goes, "Duck it, you'll suck," and walks off stage. Took a few seconds to register with everyone he wasn't joking, and every starts booing and cussing. I was legit excited and it just turned to garbage so quick. I was at some weird zoo animal preserve north of Phoenix in 2012, and there was a tigress in chain linked compound. This little girl went up to her and blew her a kiss. The tigress looked at her and licked her own, not the little girl's, whiskers, and the crowd went AWW. The tigress shifted a little bit and pissed all over the little girl. The crowd was shocked and horrified, but I laughed my ass off. While I was reading this, I was so scared it was gonna say she was mauled by the tiger. We were all 17-18 on a school trip. Typical week away doing rock climbing, archery, camping, etc. At the end of the trip we gathered in a big hall for one final gathering, and then out of the blue there was a demonstration on how to effectively kill a chicken, using a live chicken that was killed in front of us all for some reason. No warning. So it was a fun week at the KFC training camp, which ended in a game of chicken. An animal show at Busch Gardens. The camel started ducking. Also at Busch Gardens. Years ago, elephant took a gigantic, loud shit. I mean a monumental brab. Goats ran over at warp speed and began feasting on it. The crowd was so appalled. It was wonderful. So much better than watching the goats form a pyramid. I'm giggling thinking about the poor, young girl MC attempting not to retch as the goat handlers tried to interrupt their shit party. Edit. I've been given the goat award. My life is full, but apparently not as full as the goats. I felt a mix of amusement and disgust when I and a few other visitors chanced upon a gorilla lazily fingering its bunghole and then licking it. I saw this on YouTube somewhere. A bodybuilder was strutting his stuff in front of a crowd, warming them up and everything at an event. They absolutely loved it. Many people had attended just to see him. He was at his peak. Huge muscles and sculpted physique. Absolutely amazing. I don't personally like the bodybuilding look, but you've got to respect hard work. The crowd was cheering him and he got so pumped up, so full of energy and emotion that instead of just walking onto the stage he did an impromptu jump flip. He launched himself high into the air and did this impressive flip. The crowd went berserk, but he was a bodybuilder, not a gymnast. He landed on his neck and died instantly, crumpling on the spot. It is one of the most horrific, sudden and unexpected things I've ever seen. Maybe the worst part was not all of the crowd realized immediately. They kept smiling and cheering for their hero for another minute before it sank in that they had just witnessed him die right in front of them and they were clapping for a dead man. Pink Floyd often would have giant floating pigs released during the concert. You know, inflatable balloons. This would happen like halfway through the show. While people are smoking tons of pot, drinking, doing God knows what other drugs. So by the time the pig is released it's basically like God descending from the heavens. People were losing their shit at the pig. Well, it got caught in one of the wires and caught on fire. You've never seen so many stoners fall to their knees in terror, fear, sorrow over the death of a giant inflatable pig. There is no God anymore. His bacon got fried. Holly Davidson 100th anniversary party. For months they said the headliner of the big weekend-long party was a mystery guest. Everyone assumed it would be someone who appeals to the Holly crowd like the Rolling Stones or Bruce Springsteen and the E Street Band, right? So the show starts. Opening act is the Doobie Brothers and the crowd loved it. Next is Tim McGraw and the crowd loved it. Next was Kid Rock and he just rocks and the crowd loves it. Then it's time for the mystery guest. It's Elton ducking John. The crowd just poured out of the park. Plenty stayed and enjoyed the show, but tens of thousands of people said duck this and left. The climax of the last Twilight movie is a fight scene that goes on for 10 minutes. Vampires are ripping each other's heads off. Giant wolves are throwing them around like chew toys, and one by one each of Bella's friends and family die around her. You can actually hear people in the audience react as each named character dies, and none of this happened in the book, which was criticized for its lack of climax. As each minute goes on, it feels like they improved the film's story to give it a real sense of danger and excitement and payoff to the series. So shit's intense. And right as they kill the big bad evil guy, the camera fades to black, pulls out, and reveals that all of it was a vision. The last 10 minutes didn't happen. It was someone seeing a future that might happen. No one died. Just a bunch of vampires and wolves standing around staring at each other in silence. Then they all walk away, alive and well. The crowd groans. A girl up front shouts, "Are you shitting me?" Everyone sits back in their seat. No one cares about what's happening on screen anymore. Some people are laughing because someone hit the undo button on the most exciting 10 minutes of the movie. Never have I seen a theater turn on a film so quickly and so hard. So, this is gonna require some context. This was a little while ago, back while I was in high school. The school loved to bring in speakers, which in retrospect was very kind of them, though many people thought it was a waste of time. On this particular day, the speaker was a decently famous poet, who I will not name for what I hope are obvious reasons. The talk was actually going pretty well, Since she turned out to be very funny and was cracking jokes and going on long, entertaining tangents, it was close to the most engaged I'd seen the school. Then, she decided to go a more serious direction: suicide. She went on a several-minute tangent about how suicide is selfish, that culminated in the fabulously awful quote, "People are like, oh, my life is so hard," and then just give up. How dare they? The entire room had gone ducking silent, because there was one thing she didn't know. The school had just had a suicide that had rocked the entire community, completely ruined the talk, and the school was apologizing for days.